serious? They say people do not leave bad jobs, they leave bad bosses. What made you leave? I had a boss who would scream in my face so often. I started to strategize how I would handle it when she finally hauled off and hit me. She never did, but she did eventually lose her job after being accused of child abuse. I quit before the child abuse stuff, and I will never, ever forget the day I quit. The grand boss saying, "We really value you, we are sorry to see you go." After years of working under an abusive supervisor, complete with formal complaints and documentation, that remains the most hollow thing anyone has ever said to me in a professional environment. Worked in an agency environment, big clients and big expectations, but we had a fairly small staff for all the projects we took on. Late nights were expected, and some nights I barely had time to eat before I had to sleep to go in tomorrow. Me and a few others tried to ask for structural change to get some breathing room between projects. We were always ignored by upper management and my boss. But, hey, they get us pizza after a big project, so we cannot complain. Right. I was tired, frustrated, and felt like I was just a tool for the man. We worked late and never got anything back from the company. So I sent out applications, found a bigger company with a cool culture. They offered me a gigantic pay raise, plus better benefits. I went to my boss to hand in my resignation. I gave him 2 weeks notice. This is, somehow, a 30-minute conversation telling me how miserable I will be at this other company and how good I had it here. I had not even mentioned the name of the new company, so I knew he was talking straight BS. I went back to work, thinking I had my 2 weeks confirmed. However, my boss then pulls me back into his office and says he is going to let me go today, like right now. Get your things and get out. I did so, never looked back. My new job is great, by the way. Better boss, better work, better life. I had been running the restaurant for weekend nights for 3 years. These were not easy shifts, 5 p.m. 3 a.m. Still, I was a night owl and it was my pleasure. I took some days off and went to a hot spring with my now wife. Upon driving home I noticed my leg hurt, and within 2 hours was in the hospital for an infection that would take 3 antibiotics at once to deal with. I called in sick 3 days in advance. My AGM told me it was cool, heal up, and that they would see over my shift. They did not. For my first infraction I was put on final warning and 1 step from being fired. After all the years of work, I put in 3 weeks notice the next day. Q illegal pates. It was Boulder. PTS is not a bad place. I still have friends who work there. They just chew people up and spit them out when they are done with them, like the rest of food service. They have enough money to, not do that. But here we are, just another burrito counter. I was laid off because of COVID, but I considered leaving because our manager would speak to me about others in the company. She was toxic as duck and told me everyone is out for themselves and they are all snakes. She was the only person I didn't like. Probably the worst boss I ever had was at a McDonald's. We had a younger manager for the first 10 or so months I was there. Then they decided to bring in a second manager from another store. For the first week or so he was fine, until one day one of the 16-year-old girls that usually works drive-thru was put on the grill for no reason. She got grease on her shirt and the manager said she looked like a pig and to clean it or go home. She left crying. The next day another underage kid asked to just get a drink of water after a 3-hour non-stop rush. The kid looked like he was about to pass out. The manager told him no, so he said he had drink from the sink in the back. He told him if he did that he would send him home. I lost my shit when I heard that. Basically told him to duck off and left. Never went back. I heard that a month later he was fired. I was 18 or 19 working my first job. He criticized my lipstick, saying that it was an ugly color, recommending that I wore a bright red lip to go with my bright red uniform shirt. He didn't like my choice of all black shoes. He didn't like the way I mopped the floor, taking the mop from me to show me how to properly do it. He even told one of my co-workers that she couldn't wear a sports bra under her uniform. I quit a few days later. As a nanny, it's weird when your boss is a mom with no actual experience in being a boss. The worst boss I worked for wasn't that bad when I first started working for her. Over the course of the year she kept adding more things for me to do. I wasn't just taking care of the baby, I became their maid too with no pay increase. Eventually it got even worse and I was basically her personal assistant. She got a taste of power and completely abused it. As a young 19-year-old it was hard for me to see how bad the situation was. It wasn't an overnight thing. I was eventually fired. The day after I was fired she called me asking where I was. By that time the job was so bad. I did everything in that house, from taking care of the baby to hand washing the mom's delicates. She got me a uniform and would reprimand me if it wasn't kept well. Same with hair and makeup requirements. She was a couple weeks pregnant with baby too and was suggest I become a wet nurse for them. After I was fired I never went back. This lady flipped out and showed up at my house. My manager hasn't been great pre-COVID. But as soon as our company was forced to shift to mostly WFH, she lost it. She demanded unpaid overtime and is of the mindset that WFH is always going to be less productive than working in office, because she says she gets 1/4 of her own work done when WFH. She also volunteered our department as the pilot project to go back into the office when cases were at an all-time high, but she herself was not coming in. In addition, she has demanded higher standards and tighter deadlines amidst the pandemic, and does not support us even when our clients are in the wrong. We have had a lot of our team members leave for better jobs recently and everyone is looking to do the same. Our discussing private matters about staff to other staff. She was a disgusting person in general anyway and many other things, but this was the final straw. Currently trying to leave. I am salary. If I work any amount under 40, she docks it. If I work over 40, I get my salary pay. A few weeks ago I worked 2 days out of the week, then discovered I had been around a COVID-positive person and I started developing symptoms. Work sent me home. I got a test and work had me stay home until I got the results 4 days later. Negative. Even though I am salary, my paycheck showed up hundreds of dollars less than normal and my boss didn't bother to tell me my paycheck would be significantly less. Luckily I went to HR and they told her she couldn't do that. She later called me and apologized saying she didn't know she had to pay me. This, amongst many other terrible things she does, is why I am trying to get out of there. My best friend and I worked at the same small company, under a horrific boss. Think Miranda Priestley from The Devil Wears Prada, but with early onset dementia. My friend got a great new job and gave her notice, in an effort to get her to stay. Our boss offered her my job. I do not know why the duck she thought my friend would accept. She knew we were friends. We had even booked off the same week of holiday to travel together. Of course my friend said no. And I handed in my notice the very next week, and I let her know why. I mean, there were 100 reasons, but I told her that was the straw that broke the camel's back. She had no idea until then that I knew what she had done, and the look on her face was priceless as she tried to figure out some way to deny it. I did kill it with my efficiency scores all quarter, but when the time came for raises I was given an impossible task. When I could not complete it, that was the reason cited for not giving me a raise. Our company grew and became more and more profitable because the jobs were getting bigger and bigger, and a lot of us would stay late and work overtime, but hardly anyone was getting raises. If they were, it was a cost of living raise being passed off as a genuine raise, so I figured I could take my skills elsewhere and changed careers. The client let slip how much they were paying for me. In 1 month they paid more than my annual salary. I asked my boss for a pay raise and was told there was just no money available. I said I did give them 6 weeks to find the money, and she laughed at me as I was not the type to give ultimatums. When I handed my notice in after securing a better offer from another company, my boss's boss offered me a 50% raise to stay. I work home care. My boss is typically the family I work for. It is always the families that are the reason I leave, never my clients. Families are the worst. The one that sticks out the most is a mom who got pissed off at me because I planned on taking a week off. I had worked for her for 5 years taking care of her very handicapped child. I don't get paid if I take time off, so I had planned accordingly. She told me that I needed to make the time up, that she had no idea what she was going to do with her child while I was gone. I was one of 3-4 homemaids. She had plenty of help. I told her I did not need to make any time up. I don't get paid for not being there, so it wasn't my problem, and I guess she would have to take care of her own kid. She didn't like that answer. I went on my vacation and decided I had had enough of her, so I quit. I felt bad for the kid. Wasn't he a bad kid at all, spoiled rotten because of all the issues, but otherwise a decent kid. But I could not take that mom anymore. After a week or two got a new case, moved on with my life. But it is always the families that I hate, never the clients. I have had some of the absolute best clients. Then it is just a matter of if I am willing to tolerate their family. I do not know if I left any one person so much as a toxic overall culture that owned our very souls. Nobody ever received a positive comment in evaluations ever. That question got raised in a meeting once. Do you think we could say something nice about somebody just once? That was met with the immediate response of, "That is not what we are here for." I resisted all of this for 5 long years, but the right people who held years-long grudges against me personally rose up to the right positions to put together a case that would get me railroaded out. Fortunately, my direct report clued me in as to what was going down, so I was able to interview and get another job before the hammer came down. They were gonna drag me in on a Tuesday at 11 of the clock. I got the other job offer at 9. I preemptively turned in a resignation that said nothing more than, "I resign my position effective 2020 XXXX." I also refused an exit interview and presented state and federal statute that showed I was not required to give one, even though they so badly wanted me gone. They were pissed that I did beaten them to the punch. Reality was they wanted to put me on a setup to fail PIP so they could exploit my expertise through the summer season. Instead, I handed them a post-dated resignation, knowing they would immediately throw me out of the building, and that they would have to pay me through the effective date, which also got me my annual profit-sharing distribution. Now I am in a job with far fewer hours, making more money, with co-workers that I actually like, and the old company laid off 10% of their employees, and slashed the compensation of those who remain by 30%. Good, duck them. Consider subscribing if you enjoyed this video and if you want to see more of Reddit Universe.